When most of us picture Greenland, we think of this huge, quiet, remote land of ice and snow, right? But what we're going to explore today, based on this analysis, is how this very island is quietly becoming an absolutely critical piece on the global chessboard. It's a whole different way of looking at it.
So, why the sudden focus on Greenland? Well, according to the source material we're looking at, it's about way more than just melting ice or potential resources. The argument is that the U.S. interest in Greenland is really a core part of a much bigger strategy, a strategy to hold on to its top spot in the world, and, maybe more importantly, to prevent a future where other big powers could really challenge its influence.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to walk through the four key strategic ideas presented in this analysis. We'll look at Greenland as a kind of backdoor into Russia, how it could be a base for indirect warfare, its role in corking a major new sea route, and finally, how all of this connects back to a very influential U.S. foreign policy idea. Okay, let's kick things off with the most basic element, geography. The first point is all about Greenland's incredibly unique location when it comes to Russia. It offers a strategic advantage that, frankly, nothing else in the U.S. arsenal really does. Now, take a look at this comparison because it really tells the story. Sure, the US has Alaska, and it's close to Russia, but it's close to Russia's Far East, a massive but mostly empty region. Greenland, on the other hand, well, it's a whole different ballgame. It sits much, much closer to Russia's western heartland, and that's where everything is: the major cities, the industry, the population, and of course, the centers of power. So what does that proximity actually mean? Well, the analysis describes this as giving the US a way to essentially encircle Russia from a completely new direction, from the north. It's about applying pressure not on the fringes, but directly on the country's most vital and sensitive core. All right, let's build on that with our second point, because Greenland isn't just about positioning for a direct threat. The analysis suggests it could be used in a much more subtle way, as a kind of rear base of operations for an indirect conflict. The source lays out this potential division of labor. So picture this scenario. European allies are the ones engaged in a direct, on-the-ground conflict with a rival. But the US? They're providing all the critical backup, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, that kind of thing, from the relative safety and distance of Greenland, without ever having to put their own boots on the ground. And that brings us to the real strategic prize here: plausible deniability. Operating from Greenland allows the U.S. to support its allies, to help wear down a rival's military, but to do it all while being able to claim it's not a direct participant in the war. According to this analysis, it's a way to avoid that ultimate high-stakes direct confrontation. Okay, time to shift gears. For a third point, we're moving from land strategy to the high seas, because as the Arctic ice disappears, it's opening up brand new waterways, and with them, brand new strategic calculations. And the biggest one of these is the Northern Sea Route. This thing is a total game changer. It's a new, much shorter shipping lane between Asia and Europe. For countries like Russia and China, it's basically a future economic highway for their goods and energy. And here's the key part. It lets them bypass the traditional choke points, like the Malacca Strait, where the US has a lot of control. Which leads us to the central metaphor in this whole analysis, the Greenland Cork. Just as this new road opens up, Greenland's position gives it the potential to plug it right up. Think about it. A strong U.S. presence in Greenland basically puts a gatekeeper at the western end of this brand new superhighway. According to the source, this would give Washington the incredible power to slow down, disrupt, or even completely blockade the trade that is becoming absolutely essential for its rivals' economy. So for our final point, let's tie all of these threads together and look at the big picture. Because the analysis argues that this strategy for Greenland isn't really new at all. In fact, it's just the latest chapter of a very old U.S. foreign policy playbook. And that playbook is often called the Wolfowitz Doctrine, which dates back to 1992. And its core idea is actually pretty simple. The main goal of U.S. foreign policy should be to prevent any other country anywhere from becoming powerful enough to dominate its own region and challenge U.S. leadership. So how does that apply now? Well, this isn't just about Russia anymore. The analysis really frames this as a preemptive move aimed at China, who is seen as the main long-term competitor. By controlling Greenland, the idea is to deny China any chance to set up its own strategic base or foothold in the Arctic as it becomes more and more important. Okay, so let's quickly recap what we've walked through. We've got these four interconnected strategic pillars from the analysis. First, Greenland as that backdoor to Russia. Second, as a safe base to help allies. Third, as the Cork in a new vital shipping lane, and fourth, as a block to stop a global rival from gaining a foothold. But, and this is so important, these aren't just four separate tactics. The source presents them as one single cohesive strategy. Every single piece, from the military positioning to the economic leverage, is all aimed at one overarching goal: using Greenland as a powerful tool to maintain American influence and primacy across the entire globe. And that really leaves us with a final, pretty big thought. When a place that we've always thought of as just remote and isolated suddenly becomes a key asset in global power competition, it really forces us to rethink what geography even means. It makes you ask, how does this strategic view change the way we understand all these remote places in our rapidly changing world?